Bible video games. Some people make fun of the idea, but let's be fair about this. Bible stories are in every other kind of media. There's a bunch of books and movies and music and everything else. Why not video games? Well, historically speaking, generally when someone tries to make a game based off of something in the Bible, it doesn't really go super well, mostly because it just doesn't result in a very fun game. That seems to be the biggest holdup when it comes to doing this sort of thing. I'm not saying it can't be done, because I think if you tried hard enough. I mean, there's plenty of stuff in the Bible that could be a decent video game if you really wanted to. But then you got people saying, oh, if you play as these characters, actually act as them, then it's sacrilegious. But what about the actors who play Jesus on the screen? Like, you see my point here? I don't know. Things get wacky. And some people have a massive misunderstanding when they talk about Bible games because they don't necessarily understand, like, the Bible. But I have over a decade of private religious school under my belt. I know exactly what's going on here, and we're gonna focus on probably the most famous creator of Bible games, Wisdom Tree. They were founded back in 1990, 35 years ago, and they were an offshoot of a developer called Color Dreams. Some of Wisdom Tree's games were straight-up modifications of Color Dreams games, and they were notorious for distributing their games without Nintendo's license. They worked around the lockout chip technology for the NES, the Super NES, and had a handful of games on the Genesis as well. None of their games were licensed to my knowledge. And without getting too deep into their corporate history, let's just focus on 2 of their games. And by 2, I mean 6, because both these games have 3 different games in them, making a total of 6. Oh, good times. Both originally released in 1991, and the first we're going to talk about is Bible Adventures. Now, I'm going to focus on the Genesis version of this. The Genesis version actually didn't come out until 1995, with the NES version releasing originally in 1991. But to be brutally honest, they're basically the same game anyway. The Genesis version has just slightly updated visuals, and by slightly I mean barely at all, just more shading basically. So, in the end, they're pretty much the same game. And by the same game, I mean pretty much all 3 games in here use the same basic mechanics. Running around and picking things up. That's the whole game. That's it. That's all you pretty much do, but in completely different contexts. Because the 3 games are from 3 different Old Testament stories. One is Noah's Ark, one is Baby Moses, more on that one later, because that one's a lot, and David and Goliath. We'll start with Noah's Ark, where you play as Noah, and his job is to round up all the animals to put them on the ark. Which is interesting, because I'm pretty sure that God basically commanded 2 of each animal to be put on the ark, and Noah's big job was actually building the ark in the first place. According to this, though, building the ark was the easy part. It's already done. Now he's got to run around and pick the animals up over his head like he's the friggin' Incredible Hulk and carry them into the ark. Each animal has slightly different behaviors. Some run away from you, some will try to fight you, and it does mix it up a little bit because you do eventually have to gather fruit, which is mostly by waiting for the monkeys to throw the fruit at you, and other supplies for the ark, which does make sense. And there are some things in here that are based off of the Bible, but I'm just trying to picture this situation. Okay, so God commanded Noah to build the ark and take 2 of each animal, but did he not clarify that Noah would have to carry all the animals into the ark himself? Like, is this a kind of Old Testament practical joke where God sent all the animals to the ark, but not telling them to actually get on the ark? And it was like, hey, Noah, buddy, yeah, I'm gonna need you to carry this friggin' horse onto the ark. Oh, the pandas? Yeah, the pandas are gonna try to maul you. Better be careful with that. Oh, tigers? Yeah, they're pretty vicious, man. Good luck. Also, seriously, Noah can stack a whole bunch of things over his head. Like, what the heck is going on here? I feel like we got Bible characters mixed up, because this is something I'd expect from Samson, not Noah. But hey, Noah don't care. He can run so fast he can outrun the screen. The man is God's chosen. He does whatever he wants. And what he wants to do is, well, I don't know if he wants to carry these animals on board, but that's what he's gonna do because God told him to. Just picturing God sitting up in heaven with the angels just laughing their butts off as this tiny man runs around trying to grab these horses, wrestling bears and tigers. Like, I don't think this is how this went, but if it did, that's freaking hilarious. Regardless, though, it's not a super hard game, it's just tedious. The controls are relatively slippery, and you pretty much do the same thing every time. Get stuff, carry it to the Ark. Get stuff, carry it to the Ark. Fortunately, the game isn't particularly long, and in the end, you get an ending where the Ark balances itself on top of Mount Ararat, and everything's okay. And by okay, I mean everyone else in the world is friggin' dead, but Noah's family's okay, and now they and the animals can repopulate the planet. But you forgot the dinosaurs, you fool! Where are the dinosaurs, Noah? You're supposed to include them, and you forgot them. You failure. Anyway, it's an okay game. It's not awful, but it's not really that much fun either. Next, we have Baby Moses. This is the one that I call into serious question in terms of, you could have picked a lot of stories out of the Bible to make a game off of, and you, in your infinite wisdom, decided to go with the story about the Pharaoh decreeing the murder of all male Hebrew children by tossing them into the Nile to be fed to crocodiles. Like that's the story you went with, a genocide. Oh, okay, that's a great choice for a video game. Excellent. I mean, yes, Noah's Ark is also about God killing everybody, but, I don't know, man. I don't know. The whole dead babies thing here with the tossing of baby Moses. You play as Miriam, Moses' sister, and she's trying to get Moses to the river to, put him in the little basket so he can float down and ironically be taken in by one of the Pharaoh's concubines. This game is way harder than Noah's Ark because it's an escort mission. And by escort, I mean you have to carry baby Moses the whole time. You have to carry the kid, and if you don't, well, for one thing, you'll fail the level if you don't have him at the end. And for two, if you leave him on the ground, the soldiers will pick him up and murder him by throwing him into the river. This is the only Nintendo game I'm familiar with where there is a point where a soldier will take a literal infant and toss him into the Nile for crocodiles to consume. Okay, seriously, it's only happy and bubbly because of the graphics, because of the 8-bit simplistic nature. If this were in the modern day with modern visuals, realistic graphics, this would be absolutely horrible. Can we just talk about what's happening here? Seriously, you can even throw him in accidentally because the controls are not very precise, and Miriam doesn't really have a way to fight back. You pretty much have to jump over all the soldiers, and that can be very difficult. Hit detection is spotty at best. Also, she can walk on clouds. I have no explanation for that. None. Also, there's evil spiders. I don't know why that's happening either. This is a lot. But yeah, that's a game you can certainly play. Last we have David and Goliath. Will this be different? Because, David and Goliath. We got David, tiny shepherd kid, future king of the Israelites, tossing a friggin' rock into a giant's head. That sounds action-packed, and, well, it does get to that eventually, but first you gotta carry the sheep! Oh, for goodness sakes. Why is this happening? Why are we... I told you, every single one of these games about carrying stuff. I know David's a shepherd, but did he, physically lift up all the sheep over his head like Noah? Is this just a normal thing back then? Also, can we talk about the David and Goliath story? Because I remember it being portrayed as a big miracle. Oh yeah, he took down this giant by just tossing a rock. Oh my goodness. But, okay, you don't understand. David didn't just toss a rock, alright? He had an old school sling. The sling can launch a rock, a sharp, heavy rock, at many miles an hour into someone's skull. That would hurt a lot. I don't think it's unreasonable that he took the dude down that way. But most of the game, you're going to be running around carrying the sheep, trying to avoid enemies. Most of the enemies, beyond the lions and the bears, which makes sense, are evil squirrels! Evil squirrels that throw nuts at you! I don't know why there's so many evil rabid squirrels all over the place, but that's also a thing that is now happening. Eventually, you do get to a level where you face off with Goliath. And by face off, I mean he's up a giant mountain, and jumping up here is nearly impossible. You do have a sling now, so you can use it as a weapon to throw at soldiers, but you cannot kill the scorpions with the sling, which is a friggin' problem because they're usually in the way on these tiny platforms. It is a complete and utter nightmare. And I don't know why Goliath is considered the biggest threat here, because the scorpions are clearly invincible. So, can we talk about that? Hey God, can you make sure my sling can kill scorpions? Oh no? No. The scorpions? No. You can't do anything about them. But we can kill the soldiers, but not the tiny scorpions. Okay, alright. That makes sense to me. And by that, I mean, it doesn't. So overall, Bible Adventures is not a very fun game, regardless of what platform you play it on. It's certainly interesting, and it is more of a game than a lot of Bible games tend to be, but in terms of being good, I definitely wouldn't call it good. Playable, maybe, but not good. Not the worst I've played, but absolutely not anywhere close to the best. As a curiosity, I mean, if you want to see it, I mean, it won't, like, offend you, but it is definitely a trip. However, King of Kings is, well, frankly, a lot worse. The full title is King of Kings: The Early Years, or if you look at the box, The Early Years King of Kings. Ugh, okay. And it's generally just called King of Kings. This one was also originally released in 1991 for NES, and never got a Genesis port, so it is only on NES, hence why we're playing that version of it. Once again, we have 3 different games to play, and these are supposed to be based off of the New Testament featuring Jesus Christ. But the first game focuses on the wise men, the men who show up to deliver special gifts to Jesus upon his birth: frankincense, myrrh, and gold. You only play as one of the wise men, or biblical magi, riding on a camel, trying to platform through the desert, dodging a whole horde of enemies, and your camel can not only spit at them, but jump ridiculously high. You might think that this would make it easy, but no. This game is actually deceptively difficult. There are falling rocks, platforms that disappear, many enemies that come out of nowhere. It is not an easy game by any stretch of the imagination. And also, not very much fun, unfortunately. The second game is called Flight to Egypt. This time you play as technically 3 characters, though I guess you're playing as the donkey. Joseph, Mary, and baby Jesus are all traveling to Egypt to escape King Herod, who really wants to stab baby Jesus because he thinks he's a threat to his rule. It's probably worth mentioning that these 3 games actually have different music. For Flight to Egypt, it's Go Tell It on the Mountain, which is actually a pretty catchy song. I like that one. Go tell it on the mountain. It's probably very appropriate too, because I feel like all I'm doing in this game is climbing mountains. How many mountains would they have had to climb to even get to Egypt in the first place? Apparently, every single level consists of this, because it's a winding, looping path where you just have to get to the top of it. You really don't have an attack. I mean, you do, but the donkey only kicks, but the kick has such a short range that it's practically useless. So, basically, you're dodging the entire time. It's not unplayable, but it's, again, not very much fun. And most of the time, you're just gonna keep getting hit or getting knocked further back down and then have to go all the way around again. It's just a constant spiral, an endless loop. The definition of insanity, if you will. But not quite as crazy as the third game, Jesus and the Temple. Now, despite the title, you'd think you'd play as Jesus. You don't. You do not do that. Instead, this is the story about when Jesus was accidentally left behind at the temple in Jerusalem by both Joseph and Mary when he was just 12. Yeah, these two were tasked with taking care of the literal Son of God, and they're both like, well, I thought you had him. Well, I thought you had him. Oh no! That's the actual story of the Bible. This actually happened. In this game, you play as Joseph, and while it looks rather simple, first of all, there's actually a time limit, and for 2, this game is friggin' impossible. There are so many ways you can die, and it comes across as like a speed run almost in some cases. Joseph trying to get through horrible currents and jumping over logs, going over waterfalls. Things get crazy around here. I don't know what route he's taking back to Jerusalem, but he picked the wrong one. Maybe God's punishing him for forgetting his kid. The log level drove me nuts because it's so buggy. In fact, this game in general is super buggy. The logs don't spawn at random, but don't always play the animations they should or appear when they're supposed to. Meaning that it's kind of chancy as to whether or not you can even get across. I admit I tried to get through this part for way longer than I should have, but I did do it, only to find out that the third level is even worse, because it's a descending scrolling level, where you gotta pick the right path, otherwise you get a dead end, and the invisible thing at the top just kills you. So that's a neat situation too. It's not a fun level. I probably would have been able to do it eventually through sheer trial and error, because it's the only way to get good at it, but then the game, went crazy on me. I don't know what happened here, but I think I dared to look upon one of the Ophanim, to which they replied, "Be not afraid." And I'm trying, but I'm not succeeding. Somehow, I still don't quite know how, I actually beat this level with it like this, by pure accident, but I was disappointed to learn that the following level is still bugged into oblivion, to the point that I don't believe I could actually beat it. What I can gather from how it's supposed to be, I think it's a climbing level, but it's impossible to do so because everything's completely screwed up, and I just couldn't be bothered to restart the whole game after that. Overall, unfortunately, King of Kings is a far worse game than Bible Adventures, purely because the games either just flat out aren't fun, are frustrating, or buggy messes. At least Bible Adventures is functional, and is at least playable as a curiosity. I don't consider it a good game, but I do consider it a playable experience. Wouldn't really recommend King of Kings at all, which is a shame, because again, I really think it is possible to make a decent game based off of stories in the Bible. I mean, I could think of plenty of stuff you could put in there that might actually be kind of fun. I mean, what about a game where you play as Moses and it's a negotiation type tactic with the Pharaoh trying to free his people, and every time he refuses, you gotta choose whether to use one of the plagues or not, like a strategy game or something. Or maybe one where you play as Eve and you steal a fruit. Okay, maybe not that. Don't do that. That was a bad call. Why'd you listen to the snake? Dang it! Or maybe one where you play as Cain and you stab your brother. Okay, yeah, that's probably not a good idea too. Listen, we just went over the game where you have to deal with dead babies, alright? I'm not sure stabbing your brother's much of a stretch in this department. Till next time, this is Darkness, and I bid you all a fun farewell.